This is a Gibson Les Paul. It's a studio. Gold top. Was not crafted in China. It was actually made right here in the United States of America. Proudly made by Gibson. Now, I got this Les Paul for Song and a Dance. I was patient and I waited and I waited. And this guitar was an absolute disaster when I first got it. And this is going back years now, and I refinished it, and I made it a gold top, and I did all these wonderful things to it. So you can't make the excuse that a Gibson guitar is unaffordable, because if you look around carefully and you bide your time, you could get a Les Paul. It doesn't have to necessarily be custom shop. Most people are quite happy with studios, which I am. I'm a very happy Les Paul studio owner. I have a standard and a traditional and an SG. Again, all these guitars I wound up working my butt off to be able to afford. Make a long story short, I started looking at some videos about the wonderful array of Chibson guitars that have been streaming in the last decade or so, probably even longer. And what's really getting me mad is the people that are out there educating people about what not to buy. So my first thought is someone is being like a guitar skeptic. So the China guitar skeptic, or all the other people out there that are having these guitars either gifted to them or sent to them from these Chinese manufacturers, going right under the nose of the government. The government doesn't have anything better to do other than looking for fraudulent guitars. But that's their job, you know. Again, you know, these people are enlightening us onto the things that you shouldn't and you should do. And then they'll proceed to do these unboxings and start telling you all the things you need to be looking out for, with the exceptions of the few that start drooling over the guitars. And then you find out later that you know, they're putting components in, real Gibson components. Now Gibson, for your own knowledge, Gibson's laughing their way to the bank, because they're selling their pots, which they buy from another person or another company or another corporation. They put their markup on it, which is marked up a few other times. Regardless of the fact, these people are buying these, you know, official Gibson USA components, putting them in the guitars, and saying they saved a fortune by only having to pay for the components. They're wrong. None of these guys are putting in the right amount of money. The labor it costs to do this work. People like me, tiny shops, trying to eke out some kind of subsistence, and they're never putting the labor in. Well, I got a problem with it, man. And then you find out that these guys are buying 20, 30, 40, 50 guitars, putting the components in. Again, being fair, Gibson is making a fortune with these Chibson guitars, and they don't have to do a damn thing, you know. But for the fact that these guys are putting the components in and selling them, diluting the market, and they're drooling over these guitars, man. They're drooling over them about how close the Chinese are getting. Well, you know what? A Ford is a Ford is a Ford, and a Kia is a Kia is a Kia. At least the stuff that China brings in and they're paying their appropriate taxes on, or tariffs, or whatever you want to call it, that's fair, you know. But these people that are buying the Chibson guitars and then putting the components in, enlightening the public, and then selling them to pawn shops and to all these other small places that don't really understand exactly the difference between a Gibson custom shop and a Gibson Les Paul studio. They'll just buy it for $300, sell it for $500, $600, $700, and the consumer is screwed because of these guys out there drooling and putting the good stuff into the bad stuff. So what do? Stop buying the Chinese guitars, morons. Stop enlightening us. Why are you buying 50 guitars and putting overpriced components in and then reselling them to the poor soul who can barely afford to buy an Epiphone. Buy an Epiphone. Do what I did. I got a bad problem with these people. Stop enlightening us. Stop buying 50 Chinese Les Pauls. Support your local economy. Guys like me, little shops that have nothing, eking out a living. Support your local economy. That's all I got to say.